Chapter 9. When Tuesday morning arrived, Amanda rose from bed with an extra spring in her step. Today was the day she would be doing her first volunteer shift at Students for Life. Jared had warned her it might be boring, but Amanda was just glad to be getting connected. She glanced over at Jade, who was still sleeping, her dark hair splayed across her pillowcase like spilled ink. Though still guarded, Jade had asked her about the Bible yesterday, and they'd had a semblance of a conversation until she clammed up again. Amanda knew more questions resided there, but reaching Jade was like chipping away at a brick wall with a toothpick. Inviting her to church would have been the perfect option back in Mesquite, but Amanda hadn't found a church home in Lubbock yet. She didn't want to take Jade to a place she wasn't comfortable at because, for some reason, Amanda had the feeling she might only have one shot with Jade. She mouthed another silent prayer for the sleeping girl before she left for class. Time seemed to drag as Amanda sat through each class. She continually checked her watch, tapping the face to make sure it was still working. Each class felt like 3 hours instead of 1, and by the time the last class ended, she felt like she had been sitting for 12 hours instead of only 4. As she gathered her books, she stretched her sore back and checked the watch one more time. It was nearly 1, and she had told Jared she'd be there at 1:30, so she had just enough time to grab a quick snack on her way. Amanda stopped to zip up her light jacket as she stepped outside. Though still warm, the wind was fiercer today and carried a slight chill. The red, orange, and yellow leaves flew off the trees and danced in the air before lazily floating down to the ground. Her auburn hair lifted off her neck and followed a similar pattern. A touch football game caught her eye as she crossed the quad. The guys were covered in dirt, but the sound of their voices belied their enjoyment. The roar of a lawnmower started nearby, creating a cacophonous noise, and she was glad when Holden Hall loomed before her. The heavy doors blocked most of the outside noise as they closed behind her, and the air inside the building was still and quiet. Quickening her pace, Amanda hurried to room 145. Jared looked up as she entered, a welcoming smile on his face.
"Hey, good to see you, Amanda."
Relief flooded Amanda that Jared didn't appear uncomfortable around her. She had worried it might be awkward after she turned down his coffee date request. But Jared appeared to have either forgotten it or gotten over it. "Thanks. I'm glad to be here, but I'm a little nervous."
"Don't be," he said. "First of all, I'll stay with you today, but you seem a natural. Also, we don't get a lot of calls, so it might be really boring."
"Doing God's work is never boring," she said with a smile. Amanda glanced around the small room, wondering where she should place her things. A small, well-worn tan couch and coffee table sat against the back wall. A battered shelf filled with pamphlets butted against one wall, and a few folding chairs leaned against the opposite one.
"Just drop your bag there and pull up a chair,"
Jared said, seeming to read her mind. She followed his finger to the back of the small room and set her bag on the squat brown coffee table before grabbing a chair and returning to join him at the front desk.
"So when a call comes in," he explained, "first we assess where they are. If they are agitated or seem adamant about an abortion, we take their number and transfer them to the crisis center. We take their number in case they hang up before the transfer goes through. In that case, we call the crisis center and have them call the girls. If they are simply looking at their options, as most are, then we discuss the available alternatives and get them set up with one. We can't actually counsel them, but we have numbers we can transfer them to. Do you have any questions?" he asked.
"Not about that," Amanda said. "It seems straightforward, but do you know a good church around here? Caleb suggested this place called Experience Life, but it was a little big for me." Jared stiffened slightly and cocked his head.
Who's Caleb?
A blush spread across Amanda's face, and her eyes dropped to study her hands. He's the guy I just started seeing, the one I told you about. I guess we're kind of dating. We haven't really labeled it, I mean. As the words tumbled out of her mouth, she realized she had no idea what Caleb and she were. Was he her boyfriend? Were they just dating? She would have to get some clarity on that subject.
Oh, right,
Jared said slowly. He leaned back in his chair and looked at his lap for a minute before raising his eyes again.
Well, I go to Indiana Avenue Baptist. It's big, but not too big. I haven't been to Experience Life, but I've heard you sometimes get lost in the shuffle.
That's exactly what happened, Amanda said tentatively. Why was talking about Caleb in front of Jared so uncomfortable? And was it just her, or was he feeling it too? I'll check out yours then, if that's okay. My church back in Mesquite was probably about 100 each service. I don't want much bigger than that. He smiled.
I can understand that.
For a minute, they sat in companionable silence, then an uncomfortable silence. The phone stayed silent as well, the office empty, and Amanda hated that the talk of Caleb had stalled their normally friendly banter. She pursed her lips and tapped the desk lightly with her index finger, trying to think of something else to say.
I'm glad you joined us,
he began, before being interrupted by the musical announcement of a text message on Amanda's phone. Blushing, she hit the silent button and looked up for him to continue. Just as he opened his mouth, the phone vibrated.
You better see what that is. Someone is persistent,
he sighed. Sorry, she said, swiping the screen to see 2 texts from Caleb.
Where are you? Want to meet up?
Amanda stared at the phone, at a loss for a minute. Though she did want to meet up with Caleb, she was also enjoying chatting with Jared.
Is that him?
Huh? Her eyes popped up, and a feeling of guilt coated her.
On the phone, is that the guy?
He nodded his head, using his raised eyebrow as an indicator. Heat flared across her face, and she knew it must now be the color of her hair. She nodded.
Well, tell him to come by. I'd love to meet him.
Really? Her voice squeaked as it escaped her lips.
Sure. We'll be spending a lot of time together. He ought to get to know me and the others when they're here, he hastily added. Maybe he'll even want to join us.
Though Jared's face held a smile, it didn't quite reach his eyes. But Amanda took him at his word and texted Caleb back. Jared resumed his conversation and told Amanda about his life in California growing up.
I just wish...
Jared visibly stiffened, and Amanda turned to see what had caused the change. Caleb stood in the doorway, also stiff and cold.
Jared?
Caleb's voice was hard and flat.
Caleb,
Jared said, standing.
It's been a while.
Amanda glanced from one man to the next. You two know each other?
You could say that,
Jared said. Something in his voice was off. His friendly eyes had lost their sparkle, and they now appeared hardened. She shivered at the sudden change in his demeanor. They obviously didn't like each other, though she had no idea why.
Amanda, are you ready?
Caleb addressed Amanda, but his eyes remained focused on Jared.
I'm hungry, and I'd like to get something to eat before the snack bar closes.
Neither man had moved. It was like watching a standoff. A really strange, uncomfortable standoff. Amanda looked to Jared, unsure of what to say to diffuse the situation. Okay. Jared, I'll see you Thursday, all right? She darted to the back table to grab her bag, hoping they hadn't started throwing punches while her back was turned. They remained in the same position, statues, staring each other down. Amanda touched Caleb's arm, breaking the stare, and followed him out of the room. "What was that about?" she asked as soon as they were out of Jared's earshot. Caleb waved a hand.
Nothing. We liked the same girl last year, but she chose me, and I don't think Jared ever forgave me."
Amanda's instincts told her there was more to the story, but she decided not to press the issue. What happened to the girl? Pictures of some beautiful blonde swooping in and stealing Caleb back paraded through her mind.
He shrugged. "She moved. Back home, I guess. I'm not sure. We just drifted apart."
The blonde vanished in a cloud of smoke, and Amanda smiled. "Okay, as long as she won't be coming back to steal you away." Caleb's blue eyes flashed.
"Not much chance of that."
As soon as Caleb and Amanda left, Jared's body began to shake. He sank into the chair and dropped his head into his hands.
"Not again, Lord. Please don't let this be happening again."
A seed of fury sprouted deep inside his chest and slowly clawed its way up. He had to talk to Sarah. She'd know what to do. He texted her as he locked up the room and headed to her dorm. The cool air did nothing to dispel his anger, and he was still sweating when he finally reached her door. "What's going on?" Concern colored Sarah's voice and face as she opened the door. He and Sarah had dated for a brief time before Jared met Nikki, but they had quickly learned they were better friends. Still, Sarah had been his closest confidant when Nikki left. Jared stepped in and sat down at the edge of her blue bedspread. He rocked back and forth, rubbing his palms down his pants.
"It's him."
"Who's him? I'm afraid you're going to have to give me more to go on here."
"Caleb West, that's who."
Sarah nodded. "Okay, so you ran into Caleb. I still fail to see the connection."
"Amanda, the guy she's dating, it's Caleb. Maybe I should tell her what happened. Maybe I should fight for her."
Whoa, easy, fella." She laid a hand on his arm as she sat next to him. "Have you even told Amanda you like her?" Jared ran his hand through his sandy brown hair.
"No, I asked her out for coffee after the fair, but she told me she was seeing someone. I was disappointed, but kind of expected it. She's beautiful, you know? But then the guy texted her today, and I told her to have him come over. And Caleb walked in. It was all I could do to keep from punching him. What can she possibly see in him?"
"I don't know," Sarah said. "But that's not the point now. Nikki made her own choice." She held up her hand as Jared opened his mouth to jump in. "And we don't know what happened afterwards. Right now, it's important to keep a cool head. Since we don't know if the rumors are true, you want to be sure and stay friends with her in case things go awry. Getting all riled up will make that impossible, at least until you have proof." Jared sighed.
"You're right, but I don't want Amanda to get hurt. Is there any way to warn her without coming across, I don't know, pushy?"
Sarah shook her head. "Not really, but here's what you can do. First, and most importantly, you can pray. Second, you become a listening ear. Maybe then she will open up to you. She had to sense the tension between you two and will probably want your side of the story. If she asks, then you tell her what happened with Nikki, but stick to the facts, Jared." Though he nodded, Jared was still unsure. He didn't know Amanda well, but there was something about her, and he didn't want a repeat of Nikki.
"I guess you're right. Do me a favor, though. Reach out to her, too. I get the feeling she could use some good girlfriends as well."
"You got it, and I'll be praying." Jared knew she was right, but he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that encompassed him. Though no one really knew exactly what had happened to Nikki, as she hadn't stayed on campus after the incident, the rumors had flown from person to person. If Caleb wasn't involved, his fraternity certainly had been. Jared knew Caleb well enough to know that he would get Amanda at that fraternity house one way or another, and he could only hope and pray that history would not repeat itself.